All right, so we're joined for our second guest of the 2025 spring semester from Atlanta, Georgia, by Confidence Staveley, the founder of the Cybersafe Foundation, director of application security at Merklefence, published author, worldwide speaker, one of the most accomplished women in cybersecurity today. We thank you so much for joining us. We got a room full here with us at Velma Jackson High School. It's for our computer science engineering classes. And we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County schools, including my good friend Angela Jordan over there at Shirley Simmons and my friend Tiffany Turnage at MCTC and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Love it. Now, before we get into all the things you do, and the things you have done, you're originally from Nigeria, and your
Correct.
plan when you were growing up was to be a doctor. Now, obviously, that did
Yes.
not happen. So tell us a little bit about that dream and how those decisions changed and how you kind of geared toward the tech field.
Okay, so thank you for laying that background because it's just going to help me with what I'm going to explain further. Now, the thing about being Nigerian and being African in general, and I think some cultures in Asia as well, is that parents tend to want to nudge you towards careers that are more guaranteed to have you earning high incomes. And so like every other African family and Nigerian family specifically, because Nigerians also are very big on education. My parents started nudging me based on the things that they had seen that I had inclinations for towards. So this is how it goes. If a girl talks a lot, they would say, "Oh, you need to be a lawyer. You're always chopping around the place, right?" And if it's a boy likes to fix things a lot. "Oh, you need to be an engineer." And for me, I was a girl who was great with the sciences. I loved physics, I loved maths, biology. So my parents said, "Oh, you need to be a doctor." So they had sold that dream to me for a long time that I thought it was mine until I actually got in contact with computers and found out that, oh, something else actually caused my eyes to light up. I would feel alive because I was learning how to code in, starting off from just scripting in HTML to JavaScript to learning how to code proper in Java, learning PHP and C Sharp, you know. And it was in that time of getting in contact with computers because I took a gap year from high school to college. My parents asked me to take a gap year. So it was in that gap year I taught computers for the first time. So you all are very lucky to have access to computers very early on. I didn't have access to it. So I thought
Yeah.
medicine was my thing, right? And so it was in that gap year, my parents said, go and learn how to use computers and stay active and stay engaged, that I actually first used computers. And I knew in that moment when I started building those things and feeling alive that I didn't want to do medicine anymore. But then this is the uphill battle or uphill task. Now, I have made this decision as a very young girl by myself based on what I have seen I absolutely enjoy, and coming to the realization that medicine isn't actually my own dream. It's my parents' dream. They're just vicariously living through me, and with all good intentions, by the way, because now I'm a parent and I understand it perfectly, right? And so I wanted to then explain to my parents that and convince them that I needed to do tech. Again, for some very good context, my parents are not university graduates, so they do not understand a lot of things they did not understand a lot of things I was saying. There was also no model of success. So we had a lot of medical doctors around us that were doing great for themselves. We had engineers that were doing great for themselves. We had these models of success around us, but we didn't have someone at that time in technology that was killing it, doing very great. So there was no model of success that I could reference. So I had to then, with all of these barriers, tell my parents that I know enough to say this is the path to go and have them accept. So I first got my admission to do medicine in that time and then took that admission with me when I went to pitch to my parents. I also I made my presentation out of cardboard papers because I didn't have a laptop again at this time. I couldn't afford one, so I made my presentation out of cardboard papers. And specifically saying this because you may be in Mississippi and there's certain things that you do not currently have access to that you wish you did have access to, maybe based on the city you're living in, or, many other things happening in your life right now. But I want to assure you that if you're very determined, you can get something done with what you have. There's always something you have in that time of your life that you can make something you want out of that thing you have. So for me, it was just being able to afford cardboards. I couldn't afford a computer, but I could afford to buy cardboards and make my slides, right? And make my point to my parents. And so I pitched my parents and showed them clearly how technology was the present and the future, and how I was so passionate about it that because I was very passionate about it, I most likely will do very well in it. I will go above and beyond the average person to gain the skills and to exhibit those skills in a way that, really sets me apart and sets me ahead. And my parents could clearly see the fire in my eyes. They could tell that this was something that brought me so much joy and that I was putting in so much work, evidently, in getting the skills. And they just said, okay, you know what? I know you've mentioned your admission has come, but then you can drop it right now and then go for something in line with where you're looking to go. So I went on to get an advanced diploma in software engineering. I got a scholarship to do my first degree in the UK, and I studied IT and business information systems. Again, I had some sort of direction that I wanted. Yeah, I wanted some hands-on skill. I wanted to have hands-on skills in technology, but I also wanted to know a lot about people management and the business of technology. So I knew that I wanted both sides. So that's why I went for that course. And for my master's as well, after that, I got another scholarship and I got a master's in IT management, again in the UK. And it was during that master's program that I took an elective called cryptography that actually led me down the rabbit hole of cybersecurity. So you see, For me, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was all laid out. I could see the plan and everything. It was just sheer happenstance, a series of events where I followed my passions and I was able to make something out of almost nothing that I had, because we always don't have nothing. We have something, right? I was able to then take that little and make something out of it. And then I would say also, I was able to gather a community of people that supported me to go on. Some of them, two of them were actually my mother, my father, my parents, basically. For example, I was able to access the scholarships that, although I was economically disadvantaged, I was then able to use those scholarships to access quality education. So I would say that really passion is quite a key to unlock a lot of opportunities for you. As long as you're putting in the work and you're dedicated to that passion, you would find that people are going to support you from nowhere and you'll be able to get to that goal you want to achieve.
Yeah, and that's such a cool story, and I'm glad you shared that with us. But especially in the field of cybersecurity, it's one if the not fastest growing area of tech in the world right now. And even though you did go to university and got 2 degrees over there in the UK, it's not something that you necessarily would have to go to university for. Because here in our school district, we have kids, we have programs where they can get certified in high school. We have 1 year and year and a half technical certificates. I'm sorry, I got buzzed by the office. But we have year and year and a half certificate programs where you can start working in cybersecurity, and then so many more fields, because you mentioned medicine. The medical field has never had more tech professionals. The financial field has never had more tech professionals. So we have a lot of middle schoolers that are in 13, 14 years old. So the need for them is going to grow exponentially by the time they graduate from high school.
Absolutely. I was actually looking at the Future of Jobs report yesterday from the World Economic Forum, Future of Jobs report that is basically projecting what the job market or the workforce needs in terms of skills between 2025 and 2030. And it was just mind-blowing, some of the excerpts from there. Some of them, of course, really piggybacking on what you said, shows that the fastest growing industry is tech currently, very easily, and it's going to continue to be the same way for the next 5 years. There was also another excerpt that said that among the top 26 skills that employers currently need in the workforce, cybersecurity and networking is among those top skills in terms of technology skills. So the skills are typically broken down into 8 parts. One of them is technology skills. The other one is ethics. The other one is interacting with others. And there's some other groups that way, right? Creative thinking is one of those skills, for example. So I'm saying that to say, this is such a great time to come into tech, because unlike me, who, for example, had to do all of these things, go through having 2 degrees, they're not useless, they're helpful, but there are many paths, there are many routes to this place. And I have personally seen through grooming people on my Cyber Girls program, how people have taken a boot camp and been able to get in. So fantastic to hear that, in your county, you have this amazing program to really catch young people, which is what I did not have. So I would highly recommend everyone that is listening to this, take those opportunities to take those certificate courses, take those opportunities to be upskilled and gain those skills, because they are industry agnostic. That means that you can apply them in almost every walk of life.
Yeah, and something that we're seeing now with a lot of these professionals, we had Jessie Auguste over there in London last semester, and she was talking about, she has a degree in psychology, but she uses that paired with her boot camp certifications. So she's able to have the technical skills, but she also is a skilled salesperson. So just because you go into the tech field doesn't mean you can't get a degree in something else. And I think that's something that a lot of young people don't understand. It's not just one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
You can really be skilled at both, especially with the growth of AI and the growth of coding skills that are needed in all these fields. These middle schoolers can be skilled coders and skilled in cybersecurity when they graduate, then go on to university or go to the military and really get a degree and have a job that can make 6 figures at 25 years old.
Absolutely. And just to add to that, again, from that report, the World Economic Forum is saying that there'll be a higher price tag, in quotes, if you know what I mean by price tag here. There'll be higher value, let me put it that way. There'll be higher value for people who have interdisciplinary skills. So that means that the cocktail that you are made of is going to be very valuable, right? Given an example of someone who came from psychology and then is doing psychology and sales and then is doing tech right now, that person is literally a cocktail of skills that from multiple disciplines or walks of life that actually just come together and gives a very, very unique perspective to solving problems, which is what we work for. Our jobs are all problem solving, right? We solve different kinds of problems in different kinds of jobs that we do. And if you have many lenses and you bring these unique lenses, and of course with AI coming in to work side by side us in many of those roles, you will be so valuable. So go for it.
Now, tell us a little bit about Merklefence, where you are the current director of application security, and some of the things you do on an everyday basis. And I think this is great because if somebody's interested in getting into cybersecurity, it is never the same thing every day. You are constantly seeing things, constantly protecting databases, protecting money, protecting people's identification. So just tell us a little bit about what Merklefence does and what you do over there.
Okay, great. So to start out, I want to say that cybersecurity is not a flat domain. If you want to compare cybersecurity to any other industry, I would really closely compare it to the medical field. Right. Okay. The medical field is multifaceted. A medical doctor that takes care of children is called a certain name, a pediatrician, for example. A medical doctor that administers anesthesia, there's a different name. A medical doctor that, does neurosurgery has a different name. That's a specialty. There are different kinds of specialties within, besides GP that does, that sees people. There are different specialties within the field of medicine. And that's the same way cybersecurity is. So my primary domain within cybersecurity is application security. So that means in my domain, what we do, our whole work is around ensuring that applications that are produced, applications that we use every day, the software that we consume, both over the internet or the ones that we install on our devices or on our phones, all of those apps are free as much as possible of loopholes that bad guys can basically take advantage of and attack us. So that is what we do. We ensure that when we work closely with development teams to anticipate what those loopholes could be, to find those loopholes when they mistakenly make it into the code, to ensure that we help them fix those loopholes. And we do that periodically to keep checking that other technology, other tools around the application or the application interacts with, that also safe. So from building that application or designing that application to when you're consuming it, maybe on a day-to-day basis or however way you consume it, we make sure that it is safe for you to consume. So basically, safe to consume, like you would have people in the kitchen ensuring that the food is safe. That's exactly what we would do. We would make sure that it is free of germs. In this case, it's free of vulnerability. So that is the domain I play in application security. So that means that on a day-to-day basis, I am first and foremost keeping myself up to date around what the bad guys are doing, that's putting our applications at risk. I'm staying abreast with new types of ways that the bad guys are attacking applications. I am also finding and checking my applications for or the applications for the teams that I work with for if they have any vulnerabilities. I'm doing that automated. I'm also doing that manually. I'm also working with the teams to ensure that there are certain principles that they follow when they design applications that you're using. Those principles ensure that the applications they develop are secure by default. So it's not something that is getting slapped on at the end, but I'm working closely with them to follow those principles to ensure that by default, the code that is released and is built and is brought out and exposed to you as a consumer is actually very secure. So that is what my day-to-day sort of looks like in a nutshell. So my work is ensuring that applications are secure. However, there are many other domains within cybersecurity. There are domains, for example, where all they do is ensure that they are compliant to different standards. That also touches on some of the work I do, right? But not exactly the core. So they may be compliant to the standard that the industry that tool is consumed within has to comply to. So for example, your bank app on your phone, it has to be compliant to a standard called PCI DSS. Yep. So all payment cards, yes, every transaction you have to use your card on, any such application that is in the middle of that has to be compliant to PCI DSS. So some countries also have their own compliance requirements. So if you, for example, you had a business in Europe or you have customers in Europe, right, and you have part of your business in Europe, you have to comply to the GDPR, for example, which is a privacy thing, but then again, touches very closely with cybersecurity. So there are different domains within cybersecurity and the whole broader field of information security that you can basically apply yourself to, just finding which one works for you and your unique capabilities or backgrounds. For me, it was because I came from sort of like a software development background. So it made sense to just work within application security.
That's awesome. Now, obviously, we'd be remiss because I know something you are very passionate about is your nonprofit, the Cybersafe Foundation, which does so much to get more marginalized groups involved in cybersecurity. And I think it's important because we have a lot of first-generation Americans in our district, children of immigrants from all over the world. We have a lot of English as a second language. We have some from the African diaspora like yourself. I think I said that right. But it's just so important to get every single person access and information to be involved in this field because these with the growth of e-commerce, with the growth of e-business, all these apps being developed by businesses, these jobs are going to be more lucrative and more available than ever. And it's just so important that everybody really understands why they are needed. So just tell us a little bit about the Cybersafe Foundation and some of the things you do to get more people, especially young girls, involved in cybersecurity.
That's a very great answer. So a very great question. I wanted to say that for me, I clearly have had all of my adult life in technology, which hasn't been, a bed of roses. I've had my challenges and I've had to figure a lot of things out myself. But for me, it was ensuring that through this foundation, we're able to have more people, like you mentioned, underrepresented groups in the field of cybersecurity that is fast growing and actually needs talent. And I'll give you some data to add some perspective to this. So according to the according to the World Bank, although women make up 50% of Africa's population, we only make up 9% of its cybersecurity workforce.
Wow.
Yes. So only 1 in every 10 cybersecurity professionals you find on the African continent is a woman. 1 in 10.
Wow.
So for me, that was a very, very abysmal level of representation, and I wanted to change that. And to change that, it won't be talking. It won't be just talking. Yes, talking and advocacy has a role to play, but I wanted to do more than that. I wanted to be able to enable women to get the skills and get the confidence even to be able to, no pun intended, the confidence to be able to present themselves in a way that they are valuable, and are able to get opportunities within the field of cybersecurity. So that is what the Cyber Girls Fellowship is about. We've so far been so successful to get hundreds of girls in cybersecurity roles and train a little over 1,000 in 4 cohorts that we have done across 27 African countries. So we are currently the biggest cybersecurity training and mentorship program for young women on the African continent. And its successes have been so profound. We've gotten, really profiled by the World Bank as a program that needs to be scaled because of our successes and the fact that we are training for the workforce directly and preparing girls for the workforce in terms of getting cybersecurity roles. The World Economic Forum recently featured us in their 2025 cybersecurity outlook. So, it's something that I'm very proud of because it's given women opportunities that, they typically may not have thought about or may not have been able to access because of the cost of entry for cybersecurity. And just before I close out on answering that question, I want to share a story that is so dear to my heart. There's a girl in South Africa that I can't stop talking about. Her name is Kachipa Masipa. She used to wait tables at a pizza restaurant in South Africa, and she came through our program. She learned for 8 months. We were able to prepare her for interviews as well. She landed an interview a month after completing the program, and then she got a job after that interview to work in the cybersecurity team of a company that's listed on Africa's largest stock exchange. Wow. And from there on, she's grown. In fact, her income increased by 450% on getting that job. So that's see, awesome. It's for me. Yeah, thank you. Cybersecurity is more than just protecting enterprises. It's also a tool that can help to improve the socioeconomic well-being of women and other underrepresented groups. And that is what we are thankful to be able to do through the Cybersafe Foundation.
Now, before I get to the students' questions, I'm glad you mentioned something that I want to talk about briefly, because especially with this young generation, already into the technology, into the apps, into the TikTok and the Instagram and everything. And all that's cool. I say all the time, there's celebrities I like to follow. I'm a big sports fan. I like to follow athletes and see what they're doing. But you've got to have those communication and interview skills as well, because you can be very skilled at cybersecurity. But if you can't work with a team and communicate, if you can't walk in a room and introduce yourself and explain to the company, because we talked about, you have cybersecurity people in companies that are not cybersecurity. So you've got to explain things in cybersecurity to people that aren't cybersecurity experts. So how important are those communication skills and those oral communication skills, those presentation skills, on top of being skilled in tech?
They are super important, and they've never been more important than they are today. In fact, again, going back to that report, right? Communication is still a top skill, a top 25 skill listed by the World Economic Forum. So across industries, communicating is a key thing. It's a key thing that is required, but even more so in technical domains like cybersecurity, because like you said, the work you do in cybersecurity it cannot be done alone. You have to collaborate with people. You need to work in a team. You need to also influence people outside of your team. So, for example, you need a new tool that would help you do your work better. You need to be able to show gains of what you've been able to do with the tool set available and possibly the limitations you currently have. That would need you to do a presentation in front of possibly your manager. And then your manager takes that to the board or something along those lines, right? if you're not able to communicate, that's a problem. If you find a vulnerability, or like I say in terms, a weakness in the code, and you're not able to explain to the developers why that weakness should be taken care of, and what it is actually that characterizes that weakness, and what that weakness being left there will do in terms of harm, then it will not be prioritized. And then because you cannot get the developers to make those changes, you put the whole company at risk. So you see, it's not just enough to be able to do in a technology sense, but the ability to communicate is what also helps you deliver value in wherever you find yourself. So communication skills are very important. And communication isn't just being able to get stuff for yourself. Again, going back to that report, because that report is just mind-blowing. In that report, one of the top 26 skills is teaching and mentoring. Teaching and mentoring. The world requires a huge shift in skills for the workforce in the next 5 years. The people who already have those skills will now be tasked by the businesses they work in or the companies they work in to be able to teach and mentor other people to gain those skills. So it makes the people who have those skills or have honed those skills even more valuable. So again, teaching and mentoring is also communication, right? So you see, there's so much is wrapped around it. So if computers are learning how to understand English and speak English and do what you say, not just with being commanded by code, then you who actually communicate with other humans must prioritize communication.
That's awesome. Well, I do have a couple questions. We're running low on time, but this first one is for Sean Smith. He's a senior, and he asked, do you ever wish that you had stuck with being a doctor, and since you changed career paths, is your new path stressful?
There are two ways I want to answer that question. First, by defining stress. For me, stress happens when I'm working out of the purpose and passion for my life. When my work brings me fulfillment, which it always does, I don't exactly say that I'm stressed, because I will go above and beyond. Of course, I will take care of myself, but stress, I believe, is something that really comes from not exactly staying on track with the things that you want to do and staying in the line of your passion. Otherwise, you won't feel stressed. Let me put it that way. That is how I see the world, right? It doesn't have to be what everyone sees it as. So that is one thing. And then I also feel, if you look at the context of stress as a form of pain, I feel that pain is also very subjective, right? It's subjective in the sense of, if I punch you in the face and you didn't understand why I punched you in the face, the pain you would feel, because it's a purposeless kind of pain, will be different than if you had a wound and I had to pour alcohol on that wound. You would feel pain. But because you know the purpose of that pain, it's a different kind of feeling you get. You know, the end goal is for that wound to heal, and pouring alcohol on it, or spirit, because spirit is also, is that wound gets to heal. The pain you feel, you endure it and you take it in because you know it's towards your betterment. So that is also how I see the concept of stress and the pain that comes from it. And then going back to whether or not I feel, of course, that's answering the fact that I feel really fulfilled. I don't know if my eyes show it enough. I am so happy to be here. I'm so happy to be in tech. I'm so happy to be doing such purpose-filled work in cybersecurity in multiple layers that I'm able to do it. I don't know what life would have looked like as a medical doctor. I cannot say. I never was. I never really chased it. But I can tell you that because of the joy I feel right now in what I'm doing, I've been doing this for over a decade right now. And I can tell you that I am not thinking of an exit door. I am excited. I am growing at rapid pace. And I am having so much fun changing the world. I wake up every day with a spring on my feet. Literally. And so for me, I don't know what, of course, I could have saved the world also being a medical doctor, but I don't know what that would have looked like. But I'm very happy right now with my choices. And I'm not saying this for the camera at all. For all of the work I'm able to do at once, that should tell you how much passion I have for the field of cybersecurity. So I would say that for me, because of that, and the fact that I still take some time to take care of myself, I do not feel that I am stressed. And when I get to feel so much strain on my time, for example, because that's something that happens to me, I am then able to, because of the purpose of that strain on my time and maybe on my body and how I balance that out, I'm able to see that as purposeful pain.
That's awesome. Well, I got time for one more. This is Cortez Maxwell. He's in 10th grade. And we didn't talk about this, but we did before you came on as a class. And he asked, what was the biggest inspiration to write your book?
Biggest inspiration to write the book? Very easy to answer that question. Just helping people, right? I had gotten a lot of experience with the work I was doing in application security, and I clearly saw how APIs were powering all of the innovation we are seeing around the world. In fact, when you use Uber, or when you use Google Maps within Uber, when you are trying to find your location and the app says where I am, and then you say where you're going to as a destination, you're actually using Google's API within Uber. So these things are just, yeah,
Wow.
they are so ubiquitous that you do not see them. APIs are everywhere. They are
Wow.
everywhere. If we were using Zoom over our browser right now, we'll be calling an API as well. So APIs are everywhere, right? And so for me, it was just ensuring that I'm able to distill the knowledge I've gained to help teams or people who were trying to secure APIs and haven't figured it out yet, and just being able to help them figure it out quickly. The month I released my book, I had someone reach out to me from CISA. It's basically America's foremost cybersecurity agency, government agency, reached out to me and said, oh, he's been trying to understand how APIs, how to protect APIs and how to help the organizations he's basically advising within CISA how to protect their APIs. And my book is very instrumental in really helping him. So you see that I wrote a book in one corner of the world, but then it's helping people across the world. And that was really my inspiration, being able to distill that knowledge I had gained to help people really solve a problem. And I think that that has been my underlying motivation for everything I've wanted to do, things that people pay me for and things that people do not pay me for. It's just that hunger to be able to help people do something better or find a blind spot or something along those lines. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for joining us. It's just really amazing all the things you're doing. But a couple things before we go. ConfidenceStaveley.com. That's your website. You've got your book on there, really good videos. And all your social media handles are on there. Great social media follow, really cool stuff you're putting out.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Now, the last thing before we go, you've traveled the world, won multiple awards, put out a book. Been all over speaking about cybersecurity, have a great career that you keep building. But did you ever think that the little girl growing up in Nigeria would be where she is today, to have this platform, to be in such an evolving field, touching so many lives?
There is no way in the world I would have seen that, to be honest. How much time do we have? Do we have 3 minutes?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So let me share my birth story. That will give you a lot of perspective around how far off I am from where I came from. Let me put it that way. In fact, I make jokes and I say my ancestors could never have imagined me. Never. I'm a first generation graduate, university graduate. I was born in a little hut in rural Nigeria, very rural Nigeria. In fact, my mom was supposed to have me in a semi-urban city next to my village, because again, there are cities and then there are villages, like they're proper rural communities, right? And but what had happened was it had rained so heavily that the night my mom went into labor, that a huge tree had fallen and blocked the only entrance and exit from my little village. So there was no motorable way of going out of my village. So my mom went into labor, stayed alone in her little hut, in pain, and just had a sister by the side in the nearby hut. And when she realized she was ready to have me, she went to her sister's place, and there was no electricity whatsoever. So we used to have these lanterns that were using kerosene and a wick in it, and then they would light it up. So there was no kerosene even in the lantern. My mom's sister, who is my auntie, went to get kerosene for the lamp, and my mom had to give birth to me. She was under so much pressure. So she put a little cloth on the ground, sat on the floor, and laid on the floor and had me in darkness, stark darkness. It was when my auntie heard my voice that she came with the lantern that she had finally found kerosene to fill. So I'm saying that to say I was born in that much darkness, but I see myself as light. And that's why I'm constantly thinking of ways to help people, ways to make the world better. Because I believe that although I was born in darkness, in so much poverty, I am light. Today, I am called across the world to speak. 2 months ago, I spoke at Google's HQ on cybersecurity as well. You know, I'm sought after across the world, but this is someone who was born in such darkness. I went to the hospital for the first time 1 week after I was born. My parents took me for their immunizations. But imagine that my parents could not do that. I wasn't born in a hospital, in hygiene environments that are safe for children to be born, for example. But today I am able to do this. So I just want to encourage anyone that is watching this, where you're coming from doesn't matter as much as what you're able to do with the things that you're passionate about. You can rewrite your whole family's history and your whole ancestry and create better opportunities for those who come after you if you actually chase your passion and put in the work. And I want to close out by saying, unfortunately, we're in a generation that is heavily distracted, right? You're constantly wanting to be on TikTok and on your phone and every of that. But if you check, how much time are you spending on your phone? Can you put a cap? Do you have control over how much time you're spending on all of these? Because they're stealing your time. They're stealing your attention. You need to be able to take control of the one thing that you can use to change your life, which is your attention. And your ability to stay undistracted from your goals is a key way you can get successful.
Wow. Unbelievable. And what an unbelievable story. You're such an inspiration to so many people, and just really can't wait to see all the cool things you're doing. And we'll have to do this again sometime. I really appreciate you joining us today. Confident Staveley, all the way from Atlanta, Director of Application Security at Merklefence, founder of the Cybersafe Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
All right, buddy.